So it's 2:00.
It is.
We've got 11 participants so far, and the number is increasing. So we'll just wait maybe a minute. We do like to be on time, though, don't we, Tracy?
We do, but just face it, everybody's come back from lunch. They're all trying to stay awake from their, I don't know, chips and beans. Oh, I quite like chips and beans now.
But what, for lunchtime?
For lunch, yeah.
Oh.
Baked beans, they're underrated. Hello, Nas. We don't eat enough of them. Afternoon, NASA.
I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
It's our cunning plan. Can't hear you at all,
you're still on mute. We can't hear you. I've got 43 participants. The number is steadying out, but we can wait a minute or so.
Of course we can.
Oh, another Tuesday at 2.
Another webinar. I was saying the other day, this was the first webinar, and it's been lovely to get feedback from people, just complete strangers, saying that they're quite frightened of the subject and they need to be able to talk through it, which is quite nice. Well,
everybody's going to have an opportunity today to talk. Is NASA there?
Hi.
Hello, hi, yes, NASA. We can hear you now, Nas. That's good.
Hi, I'm sorry, I was just on a different call, but I'm going to put myself on mute and then I'll join you when I'm finished.
Okay,
cool.
Hi.
So,
and good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Anyway, so let's should we dive in, Tracy?
Let's go.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is week 2 of accessible recruitment. Today we've got access 100% to Tracy Abbott, who's going to answer hopefully all your questions. The way we're going to run this is, please put your hand up. Can you see the little icon at the bottom of your toolbar there? It says raise hand. So, and then our Azadeh, who's behind the scenes, she'll give you access and you'll be able to put your camera on, or if you don't want to put your camera on, that's fine. Just use your voice to do an audio and ask Tracy the question, she'll answer it. For anybody who doesn't want to speak live or doesn't, hasn't thought about the question right now, you can put your questions in the chat and then Tracy will answer them towards the end of the webinar, or she will do a one-to-one. Sorry about that. She'll do a one-to-one with you afterwards. So she'll get in touch after the session. So yeah, so I think we're ready, aren't we? So is anybody gonna be brave enough?
Yeah, who's gonna put the hand up
and raise a hand? I presume most of you were on the call last week. So we're talking about accessible recruitment and how we can make recruitment easier for within our organization. So we have Hugh Buckley. So
hi, Hugh.
I think Azadeh just has to give him access.
I remember. He's
probably busy behind the scenes going, oh no, I can't do it.
He has access already, so he should be allowed to talk if he must be on mute. I don't know.
Hugh, are you there? No. Oh, yeah, you're on mute now, Hugh. Oh, you're taking your hand down. Maybe there wasn't a question. Hang on, in the Q&A, what's this now?
There is a recording, Gemma. I'll ask Anna to send it across to you, but we've got a recording and we've got the transcript as well as a resources page with some information about what I was talking about. So we can get that across to you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll send the recording out and as Tracy said, the resource page.
Bobby.
So, yes. Bobby.
Hi, Bobby.
Hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Hi. So my question was around, so I'm particularly interested in recruitment and how, so we're disability confident registered, but we haven't made very good inroads in it yet. And I think what I'm really interested in is how we source people with disabilities. We post our jobs in all the usual places, but I wanted to try and expand that out to kind of seek out more diverse communities generally, but especially people from
I mean,
background?
it's a great question, Bobby. One of the things that you almost need to have a look at first is the culture within your organization, and make sure that your line managers and your hiring managers and your recruiters are trained, and that your recruitment process is barrier free. Because you can go out to the world and say to them, hi, we really want to recruit you. But if there's something that forms a roadblock for when they do apply for the job, all the hard work you do in reaching out to the disabled community could be wasted. So I'd recommend having a quick look. I'm more than happy to do that, and that's what my day job is. But there's all sorts of places that you can look. And when you said your usual websites, do you look at people like Even Break? Have you used Even Break, Bobby?
I haven't, but I did write it down from last week. So
Yeah.
it was something I planned to have a look at.
Really, really good resource. It is a commercial site. It is a social enterprise, however. All the staff are disabled. The owner is disabled. Very entrepreneurial spirit. She set it up probably about 12 years ago now. They've got over 50,000 disabled people on their website, or people with disabilities rather. So it's a great place to start. There's some new ones that are setting up, like Patchwork. Patchwork actually looks at providing part-time roles for people that might have caring responsibilities or a long-term health condition that prevents them from working full-time. That's a good one to look at. There's all sorts of places like Employment Autism, small recruitment companies like Care Trade that deal with people on the neurodiverse side of things. You could look at the YMCA. They do a nice line in young people. Job centres, obviously, and SWAP. My colleague Alexandra Pacey is always talking about SWAP, where they're taking people, and I can't remember what it stands for. I meant to look it up before I got on the call. But Alex, if you're around, if you could put it in the chat, it's a great way of taking people and retraining them. So there's a lot that you can look at around there, but you can also look at Refugee International. They do a lot of work with talent coming from war-torn countries that are moving into the UK.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tracy. That's super
You're welcome.
helpful. While I'm here, can I ask a cheeky second question?
You certainly can.
That was around, are there any, and I think some of this was covered in the email that you guys followed up with. I know you thoughtfully sent some links through to us, but are there any websites or resources online that you would say these are great go-tos just for bits of ideas and to start getting your head around what are the different areas we might want to look at? Are there any good online resources you'd recommend?
Well, us, as a great online resource, we've got a lot of information. Obviously, the Disability Confident website has a lot of information that's available. Plus, it's such a large community. I think it's over 22,000 companies that are involved in that now. You could look at somebody like Business Disability Forum, if your company is a member or not currently. They have a great pool of written resource across everything that you could do, from facilities to recruitment to health and safety, et cetera, So there's some good resources there. And even if you look at companies like Even Break, their website, they do an awful lot around creating a community environment and encouraging you to then engage with them. But if you want to know some basics on what the first steps could be, where you go to find talent, what you do to audit your recruitment practices, can I recommend you give me a call? I know it's a bit cheeky, and we will charge you. There is a charge around it. But having said that, we can show you how to work with Access to Work to get what roles properly funded, where you can get, I hate to use the word cheap, value for money resource, that's better. So you can actually engage with people with disabilities in a much more cost-effective fashion and support them better.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy. That's super
You're welcome.
helpful.
Good, thank you.
I see that Judith has typed some, from Care Trade. She's
Oh, Judith. Hi, Judith.
So that's a great resource.
Judith is fabulous. Care Trade, really, really good folk to hook up with. On the neurodiverse side, chat with Judith. We'll put her contact details in after, so you can actually chase up with that. But the people that we recommend are people that I've personally worked with over the years, and that I found to be really passionate about getting this right and supporting the individuals and helping the companies to not be afraid around the subject and to do it cost effectively.
And we've got a question from Hugh. Hugh Buckley's got his hand up. Go ahead, Hugh.
Hugh,
Yeah,
we can't hear you. Can you type it in the chat?
He has. I can read his
Oh.
question because he has done that. What are people's thoughts on providing interview questions to all candidates rather than just candidates who request them as a reasonable adjustment?
Absolutely, Hugh. I would thoroughly recommend. It's not supposed to be a test. The interview should not be a test process. Whether you're recruiting project managers for a multi-million-pound building complex, or you're recruiting, I don't know, a secretarial support person in their first role, tell everybody what you expect to hear from them. Let them prepare to do their absolute best. So I would say best practice, absolutely, questions to everybody, and give them an idea of what you expect. Some of the better companies that I've come across will have loads of videos over the place, just short clips saying, this is the kind of information we want from you. They don't want to spend an hour teasing it out of you. They want you to present it with confidence, and it helps us all to do a better job in interviews. So absolutely, good question, thank you.
Yeah, anybody else got a question? Raise their hand. Yeah, so we've got Simon Holt. If you can take yourself off mute and then we can hear you. There we go.
Hi, Simon.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Great. So I work for Elsevier, who are a scientific publisher, and I'm their first disability confidence manager. So this is my
Fabulous.
job, and this is quite exciting for me. So we're looking at putting together an adjustments process for the talent acquisition process, right? So we already have quite a good one for people who actually work at the company, but there's lots of questions in my mind around how we do this for the process of interview. So, you know, when do we ask? Well, okay, we can ask people at when they submit their application, we can ask people at interview, etc. But my two main questions is, who should do the asking? Should it be the recruiter, as in someone from the talent acquisition team, or should it be that hiring manager? And then B, what kinds of adjustments are reasonable for an interview point of view? And my question here, sorry, I'll just finish, is like, let's say somebody needs a particular piece of equipment to work, right? If they're employed, clearly that comes under access to work, or, you know, we're a big company, we can pay. But realistically, we're probably not going to buy someone a whole JAWS or something so they can participate in one interview, right? How does it work from a talent acquisition point of view? What's reasonable to expect? And I just kind of appreciate some kind of basic guidance to someone like me who's just started to look into this. I want to put a process together, but kind of, not really sure quite where to begin. So thanks for any guidance.
Great question, Simon, and well done on Elsevier and actually taking the step, because it's really important to have a focal point for this sort of stuff. Your questions around recruiters and hiring managers and making adjustments, there's very little under law, and we want to avoid law. Let's just say that from the outstart. We really don't want to test what reasonable is, because as far as the law is concerned, a company with a background of Elsevier, for example, would be considered wealthy enough to make most adjustments. But I hear what you say. If somebody needs an elevator to get to the first floor, you're not going to build an elevator. However, I would recommend you move all your interviews to the ground floor. So there are ways and ways around. What I would recommend, as part of, you've got a workplace adjustments process already in process, if you extend that out, you look at the software and hardware that your IT currently sign off on and say that you can work with. You do some training with your hiring managers and your recruiters for that person that turns up either virtually or face-to-face and suddenly goes, forgot to mention I'm deaf or hard of hearing and I need somebody to interpret for me. You have a go-to product in your kit bag that says interactive streamer, for example, that I've got, that does text-to-speech. Speech to text even. But your recruiters are trained and given the confidence to say, what can we do to facilitate your coming in for interview? If you're going to be asking the question, ask everybody all the time at all levels. As I mentioned before, don't record the disability because that's irrelevant. Record the impact that the disability might have on the work and the day-to-day work that they're going to do, and particularly in an interview, whether or not they need extra time, whether or not they need something as random as a turquoise overlay screen for doing a test. And then just record the adjustment, and then that will follow through into their actual workplace adjustments if and when they join you. But always ask when you're in the interview, before the interview, when you're putting out your ads, put on there, can we ask if you have a disability or a long-term health condition, if you're happy to tell us, and if we can move away from the word disclose, because it's quite a dirty word, isn't it?
The only thing you disclose is your criminal record, right?
Exactly.
And so by using the word disclose, we're equating disability with criminality. Share,
exactly.
I think, is more
Share,
what I
tell,
like.
something that's very gentle, but please make sure that is reflected in your ERG web page, on your company web page, so that people can see it's not just polite what you've done at the front end, that it actually means something within your organization.
Yeah. And then, sorry, just a very quick follow-up question on this. What about assessing people? So clearly it's important to have matrices and scores by which we give people. But I guess one thing I think about is if you're doing a test, right, an assessment, and it's not only not in the right format, but it seems very difficult to put it in the right format. How do you assess people when everybody else has done a test in a certain way?
You might not be able to.
And do you have any tips about how you might go about thinking about that, essentially?
The main thing when you are testing is, please think about what you are testing for. Are you testing for behaviors or skills? Is there another way that you can test it? And it might be that your assessment centers, forgive me for everybody running assessment centers, just might not be fit for purpose anymore. Because you're not just talking about people who, like me, are diabetic. You're talking about individuals who are neurodiverse, who, if you're asking them in an assessment center, and we see it quite often, when you're looking for behavioral traits, give us an example of when you've done something really funky and you're using emotive words that don't necessarily work for people who are neurodiverse. If you're looking at doing an actual basic, typing test or a coding test, and the job is as a programmer, well, then they have to be able to do that job. So they have to either be able to use the assistive technology they use currently to do the test, or if they're not able to do that and they're not able to complete the test and they can't show you that they can program, they're probably not the right talent for you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
I've got 6 questions now. So Mark Anthony Bastiani. Now I know Mark. I think he's ex-TUC, if it's the correct Mark Anthony that I think I know.
It's a great name.
Yes, he does have a great name. He's also very, very competent and very good at his job. What is the panel view on how you get the message out there that a person with a disability is more than capable? And what is your view that any person with a disability can be guaranteed an interview?
Guaranteed interviews is always a tricky one. And I think it should be guaranteed if they have the skills, and you should be very wary of the balance, because you could potentially have just disabled people and not any non-disabled people coming for a job role, which is fine, but you have to make sure that you are truly testing for somebody who can do that job and not giving people a free pass because they've got a disability. But in terms of actually making sure that people understand, most of us have some sort of health-related disability that will come on with age. It's a fact of life. I mean, look at us. We're wearing glasses. If I don't have my glasses, I can't read my screen. That doesn't mean I can't do a job. It just means I have to wear glasses. So it's kind of important that we keep getting the messaging out there, that we keep showing success stories without it becoming inspiration porn. Because individuals with disabilities are you, me, the next door neighbor, NASA, maybe Anna, for all I know. Can I do the job that you want done? And that's what we've got to keep focusing on. Removing the barriers to people that have a disability to make sure that their disability doesn't impact on the job. Give them the adjustments that they need. We're doing it all the time for everybody else. I don't know if that answers your question, because it was quite a big question you had.
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one, and it is, we're focusing today mainly on organisations looking to do a more accessible recruitment provide.
You know
that
what? I mean,
service.
I'd love to have a conversation
uh,
with you
uh,
after if you want to give me a bell.
I would actually put some context around that question because Disability Confident Campaign did start putting that as a one of the key requirements for every disabled person to have a guaranteed interview. However, when you talk to organizations who have thousands of positions they advertise, and if they were to do that, then they'll be overwhelmed, you know, obviously, just for the sake of they are disabled to give them. They found that that could be or burden them too much. Then, obviously, the refinement is, well, as long as they meet that minimum specification of the job, the description, you know, they can do the job. Yes, by all means, give them the benefit of that interview if they ask for it. So, yeah, it's not, the answer is not going to be the same for every organization. Some can do it, and others have to work around that.
Totally.
But you're absolutely right. We need to spot the talent and give them opportunity rather than just do it for the mechanics of it because it's requirement.
So next question, Rich Wheeler. Can Microlink help current employees in feeling more comfortable sharing disability data so that there are more accurate figures of disabled employees within the organisation? Using screen reader and trying to take notes, so would prefer not having to unmic. Okay. So,
fair enough.
Hi, Rich.
I mean, NASA could give you some great examples of where we've gone in, done workplace adjustments across the whole business, and that could be, you know, 100,000 employees. And the fact that we're actually doing that and employees can see what it is that we're doing around workplace adjustments, they suddenly feel more comfortable about telling their employee, telling their managers that they need adjustments made for them. I think, Nasa, you've got figures around that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. In fact, sometimes data about disclosure can be counterproductive because there are two types of situations where employees do not like to disclose their disability. One is if they feel the employer is not going to do much about it. So what's the point of giving you my data if you're not going to act on it? And the other one is the organizations who are very good with disability and they've created a kind of a social model of disability. So you don't need to say you are disabled, you get the help you need, the adjustment you need. In that situation, people will say, well, why would I need to disclose if I am getting what I need? But the other important factor is if you ask disabled people if they are disabled, vast majority will say no. They might have challenges at work, but they're not disabled. And then the other final point about it is you may have a condition that might be classified as disability under the definition. Let's say you're a wheelchair user. However, you work on the ground floor of a building, the doors are wide enough, you don't have to climb stairs, you get to your desk, you've got a nice setup. Now, your disability doesn't impact your work. So again, by telling the employer I'm disabled, really doesn't really do any good. So whereas if you actually had to move to a different level and it wasn't accessible, then your disability will come in. So you got to really think about why you need that data and how it would help to improve the working condition for that disabled employee.
Do you know what's fascinating? It's over the 30 years that Microlink have been doing workplace adjustments. There's been over 500,000 individuals that have been helped. And actually, we've worked out a matrix that can be applied to almost any employment environment to tell you how many people you probably have that have a disability and how much it would probably cost.
That's a very good point, Tracy. We did the exercise 2-3 years ago because there was a lot of conversation about how do we increase the disability disclosure, because employees were saying, if I don't know, then I can't do anything about it. But we actually tried to prove the point that just by asking the right question, you get the answers you want. So we asked all the employees, do you have a disability? We expected obviously a bit more, but we got about 9-10% say yes. Then we went and asked a different question. We said, these are the conditions, medical conditions, and you've had it for 12 months, and it has serious impact on your day-to-day. Somewhere like maybe 30% tick the boxes. Now, that is exactly what happens in any organization. You say to a person, have you had cancer? Does it impact your day-to-day? They will say, yeah. But if you say, are you disabled? They say, no.
Yeah.
That's how you discover the true figures. And I think most organizations do carry a lot more than they know, which is a good thing because they've been coping with people, disabled people working already. So recruiting more shouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
They don't know that.
Yeah.
Abigail Roberts, I'm just going to interject here because I've got lots of other questions before Abigail's comment, but she made a very good comment. As an inclusive recruitment consultant, the main reason people who identify as disabled don't share their disability is lack of trust within the organization that they're interviewing for. So it is if that organization is actually outwardly displaying that they're disability friendly and they understand, and it's a very good point, Abigail. And Bina Desai, I agree with your point, Abigail. That's what we're finding within her organization as well, and also Hugh Buckley also agreed with that. So there's lots of confirmation around trust in an organization and having an open process.
I just noticed a comment, Hugh, that you made around training. One of the things that we're looking at doing this year as part of our strategic growth is encouraging the clients that we work with to second a member of staff to us so that we can train you how we do the job over a 6-month period. So you go back to your organizations knowing everything that we've learned and distilled it down over a 6-month period. So I don't know whether that would be of interest for whoever you work with.
To support this issue of trust, which is very, very important in any to establish that trust will take time because people need to see the practice before they actually believe in the word. So the best way to actually get that trust, even at the stage of interviewing someone for a job, is not to ask if they have a disability. Ask them how the organization can help the individual to do their job better. And that often says, oh, what if I had like a remote working or flexible working, or can I have this piece of equipment that I'm used to using, I could do my job better. Then you find that they will volunteer the information, whereas a straightforward answer, are you disabled, do you need adjustment, may not get you that. And,
for sure.
So let me continue because it's very busy in the chat.
Please.
Daphne Tago-Borlons, I think if I said her name right, having the questions in advance, would this be advantageous for all people as a standard interviewing process? So they can focus more on being able to best prepare and present themselves as right for the job rather than feel like it's a test to come up with the best answer in the moment.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And please, I'd recommend everybody does that. It's not a test. It's an interview, for goodness sake. You want to find out the best about that individual and can they fit your organization. It's not about how they answer questions. And I mean, again, we touched on AI last week. That's another issue completely separately. But please, just give the questions up front. No biggie.
Yeah. And Amanda Bates says, from an employment point of view, why do we not just assume everyone is disabled and work on that scenario? We provide chairs for people who do not bring their own. Who do not bring their own. We have lighting for people with sight who require the lights to be on to enable them to do their job. We do not consider those necessities as or anything special, and do not make a fuss when we have to provide seats for them, those not in wheelchairs.
It is. It's normalizing it. And this is what we're always talking about at Microlink, it's just make it easy for everybody. We all want all of our colleagues to achieve the best that they possibly can. We want everybody who's being recruited to come into an organization that welcomes them and helps them perform the best that they can. Why would you spend any money not doing that?
But and don't forget that we have situational disabilities as well. That
of course,
and if you actually get somebody who comes as a bright talent coming to your interview, but he's just had a skiing accident, broken the arms and the leg, they'll have the same accessibility needs as somebody who's obviously either a wheelchair user or somebody who requires some form of inputting the information onto the computer without using the hand.
Exactly.
So the practice has to be universally inclusive design, so that you don't actually need to make much adjustment for people with different conditions.
Okay. That's very good.
And Rich Wheeler says, if managers in recruitment are resistant to taking equalities training, how can you work around this?
Well, okay, equalities training is really important. What I would do is make it as mandatory part of their getting recruited to being a manager, just embed it in your recruitment processes, but also make it have some meaning. If you're actually targeting your hiring managers around a diverse recruitment suite. If you're asking them to focus on one particular area, on Black people, on Jewish people, or on disabled people, give them the tools to do it comfortably, and don't make it onerous. Don't make it long. Don't make it boring. It's short and sweet.
Yeah, Abigail just commented, I would explain it as a business case. Look into the monetary argument for diverse and inclusive employment. Some people process numbers better than social impact.
Of course.
They need to know there is actually a good business reason as well. Not all line managers might subscribe to that social inclusion because they think, well, I've got a job to do. I'm not going to be held back by somebody who can't do the job. However, there is a good business case. And if line managers are given that training, the awareness that a dyslexic person can be more creative than the rest of their peers, but it might struggle in certain areas, then they won't try to get rid of that individual. They will try to harness their talent and try to get them to do more rather than actually be blocked by some, stuff that they really shouldn't be doing. So it's all about raising the awareness of the real benefit of what they get out of this, and it's not just compliance.
For sure.
So we've got Katie Fletcher. She says, hi, I'm not sure if I'm on the right call, but please can I have some advice? Oh, yeah, please can I have some advice on what interview adjustments are suitable for someone with dyslexia?
Oh, there's a few that you can do. My go-to point whenever I get somebody who says, oh, I'm dyslexic, and I think, crap, what do I do next? Is to always say to the person, what do you need? What adjustments do you normally have? And let me replicate them. So I'm not trying to thrust a different type of software down them. They might say they need Dragon. They might see they need an overlay on this screen. They might want extra time. But you can offer it. But I would always say, what do you need? If they've come from a school or a university, they already know. If they're moving from another employer, they already know. So ask them and they will tell you.
And Gemma King says, do you or can you recommend any good training courses and sources within the organization? So yes, us.
Yeah, basically.
Training, which we will be letting you know all about after this.
Indeed, and also there are lots of amazing charities like Business Disability Forum, Purple Space. Absolutely. There's a lot of information where you could go and get, and certainly if you have any specific questions, then by all means contact us and we'll happily help you.
Lauren DeGrange, how discriminatory, I can't say this word, discriminatory is bulk recruitment? I know of someone who was matched to a role through bulk recruitment they couldn't do because of their disability. Yeah. Thankfully, another role came up within the organization. But what issues should recruitment look out for around this? What other issues have you seen arise from this recruitment method?
The bulk recruitment is a profiling of people on a particular set of characteristics. And there is a lot of biases built into those. You have a set of data that this particular type of people can do that job. That's not really good for modern business because we live in a very changing landscape on a daily basis, and you don't want to have the same standard template for everyone to work towards the same kind of objective. So you need to really be open-minded about what you're expecting your employees to do. Whereas it's very difficult to put that into one of these bulk recruitment tools. I mean, AI has been mentioned. The data collected for that template comes from years of practice, which may not have been the correct way of doing things, but yet that data drives the algorithm that gives you the answers into this one. So you really need to be very careful how you apply it and where you apply it. And one particular major international company started using one of those tools, and they discovered they can't hire any women because the data was so biased in terms of, and then obviously the algorithm say, well, this is the type of person you want, and almost all of it was men, no women.
The general rule of thumb, if I may say, and it's not using IT or anything, it's looking at what you need that role to produce, whether or not it's producing the written word, whether it's producing a car, or whether or not it's somebody who's going to be adding up somebody's accounts. You look at the key skill areas that you need these individuals to have to produce the outputs that you need. And then you just say, these are the skills that we need. If you need an adjustment to actually achieve the skills that we need, then tell us about it and we'll make them. But it's when you say, I'm just going to be very basic and say, we need a shelf stacker, then that's okay. But you need to be able to say that somebody needs to be able to reach the top shelf to stack it. So be very clear about what it is you want somebody to achieve. Don't do bulk recruitment through Job Centre Plus, because that doesn't work very well. If you do it in small batches, it's much more efficacious, shall we say, for both the candidate and the company. So really think it through. Bulk anything is it's never good.
So we have another question here from Felicity Turner Wilson. In our current climate, a lot of our interviews have gone onto virtual platforms like Zoom, for example. I worry this does make interviews a lot less accessible. Is there any advice for certain platforms to use, or any questions we could ask in order to offer more guidance, etc.?
I would absolutely recommend that you do a test interview with the individuals. So it makes it a two-step process, absolutely. But just to say, look, can we have a quick 10, 15 minutes with you? We tend to use Zoom or Teams or Chimes if it's Amazon, and all of them are pretty good, to be fair. But not everybody, particularly again, if we talk about neurodivergent individuals, will be good. Or if you've got somebody with visual impairment that uses JAWS, you need to ensure that their adjustments will actually work with your IT. So I just recommend that you have a quick meet with them the day before or half an hour before, just to check that it actually works. And if it doesn't, reset it for another day, because I come out in cold sweats. I don't know about you guys, but just actually coming onto this, and bless, we've got a fabulous team in marketing that help me to cope with the IT. But individuals coming for interviews might not necessarily have that. So just give them the time.
And sometimes people may not be comfortable to have a video interview, and just allow them to not to have their video on.
Yeah, the voice, absolutely.
Absolutely, because if it's not relevant to the actual job specification, then why ask for it? Let people decide what they're comfortable with.
It does remove a lot of the bias as well if you're just doing it by voice.
And Abigail says, how do you approach a hiring manager that needs to update their language around disabilities?
Do you want me to give you the polite answer or the non-polite answer? The non-polite is actually sitting them down in a dark room and beating them until they get it. The polite version, sorry everybody, the polite version is actually engaging with them. What I've found, most people have a fear around disability. They've got a fear of getting it wrong. They've got a fear of the X factor, and they've got a fear of being sued. And the thing is that you're talking about fellow human beings. Just ask them what you need to know and why you need to know it. So with hiring managers, it's often finding the personal. So asking them about, do they have any family members, loved ones, or colleagues that have a disability or a long-term health condition? And it makes it more personal. And once you've made it personal to an individual, they get it. They'll suddenly be the greatest evangelical person that you could hope for. But you have to, and failing that, the dark room does work.
Yeah, so hang on. I've got so many questions here. Ursula Bilson said earlier, this was quite a long way back in the chat, we provide interview questions in a written form for the person when they do an interview on a card with 14 points, unless requested otherwise. For online, pass the questions into the chat function of the platform. So did that make sense? We provide interview questions in a written form for a person that interviews.
I mean, 14
points with 14 points.
Yeah, the RNIB say that the minimum should be 12 points. So 14 point is good practice. There are different fonts that are better that I don't know about. We use, what do we use, Nessa?
I think it's 12 as well. Or it depends on individuals that can set their own. But it is really important to appreciate some people might need that in advance in a written copy because you know, I personally find it difficult to read anything in a chat box because of my visual impairment, and people need to prepare for them. As Tracy, you said, it's not an exam. It's for the interviewer to establish the skill set.
Yeah.
And also, you know, you've got to sell yourself as much as you want the other side to sell themselves. It's a two-way relationship. So if they have the skills that you need, they need to have to be given the opportunity to prove it to you. And putting them under pressure, they may not be able to do that. But give them time. So that's, I would not use interview questions in a chat box. It's not really a fair thing to do. And it's not good practice, because people may just miss the nuances of that question, how to reply.
Okay, Abigail said again, we base the roles we recruit for on what good looks like and strip them back to the core skills needed and score candidates against this. This helps to reduce the impact of comparison bias.
Yeah, that's fabulous, actually. Good practice.
Right.
So I think I've kind of asked everything on my list. I didn't expect to go through it so quickly. It looked like a mountain.
Oh, Gemma. Okay, Gemma, your question about how do you approach line managers who in theory embrace inclusion. I mean, it's a great question because you get a lot of lip service. And I think a lot of the time that Nasser and I spend when we're talking to various companies about setting up workplace adjustment systems is around the lip service. And what we're trying to get at here is the practical skills that you need to get this right. Line managers should be measured on this sort of thing. If they're not performing against it, there should be words spoken. And certainly if you're aware of somebody that goes, yeah, I don't, I'm an equal opportunity employer, and I'd love to have women or disabled people in, and then turn around and go, yeah, but I don't want any cripples in a wheelchair. You don't want that kind of behavior, and it does happen, but you need to call it out when it happens.
It should be really built into the management training, CIPDs, and it should be really become mainstream. This should not be a fringe activity, and because it impacts so many people, HR professionals really need to have formal education and retraining about how to deal with neurodiverse, all sorts of diverse and cohorts that they deal with. So it's not done yet, but it should be done. There's a lot of talk about including it. And when that happens, then the quality of management will improve as well. And the business also improves. This is not about cost. It's about getting more benefits.
I mean, if you think about it in practical terms, it's not that long ago that if you walk past a building site as a young lady that you would get wolf whistles, you'd get catcalls, etc. That's all stopped. And it's not taken that long for that to be culturally unacceptable. And we're hoping that it will be culturally unacceptable for anybody to discriminate even against somebody with a disability. Why would you? If they can do the job, employ them. If they can't do the job, don't. Makes no difference if they have a disability.
But now tech companies can't, breaking, they were falling all over themselves to try to find people on the spectrum to do things like cybersecurity and other clever IT, AI, because they are the best candidates. But if you put them through the traditional method of, the recruitment, you'll lose them all. Most of them don't even bother applying. They sit in their bedrooms trying to hack into Pentagon and CIA because they're that clever and they need to apply it somehow. So there is that opportunity being missed by companies if they don't broaden the horizon and they start looking at all these talents that traditionally they couldn't get through the recruitment process.
Oh, we've got you mute, Anna.
That was a classic, wasn't it? Admin put on mute. So Amanda says, as a disabled employee with physical disabilities that can impact my work, it can sometimes feel like a continuous battle to get help. Nothing is easy, and I can feel like a nuisance for having to keep asking for adjustments. It would be nice if things could be offered, and it is not always us having to ask for them ourselves or pushing for help. The exasperation for those you ask can be why we often don't tell work we are disabled.
Absolutely.
It's obvious or too severe.
One of the things that we do with a lot of companies, again, that we work with, is we advise them to get like a white label shop, effectively, that's on the computer, that people can go on it and look at a catalogue of approved adjustments and talk to the line manager and say, it would really help me if I could have X, Y, Z. They've already been approved. They know what the cost is. They know what the return on investment is. And a really sensible grown-up company take that stance. But I hear you. If you've got an employer resource group, if not, maybe look at setting one up. Talk to Kate Nash or Brendan Roach over at Purple Space. They would love to talk to you about getting employer resource groups set up so that you can support each other.
And often it's that employees don't know how to do it rather than don't want to do it. And again, I think it's beyond the kind of a cost barrier. It's all about, well, what if we get it wrong? That's why organizations such as Business Disability Forum and the Disability Confident Campaign is trying to get employers to realize there is a big community out there that can support them to get where they want to. So start asking the right questions, start doing the right thing. You'll find that it's easier than you thought. It's really much easier to achieve than maybe the fears that you've had traditionally, that we might get it wrong, it might be too expensive. It's not expensive, it's not too difficult. Just need to have a right process, like anything else you do in your organization.
Yeah. So Angela Barber, she says, you're mentioning it.
Yeah.
Is there a resource to give employers an idea of what sort of adjustments different disabilities need? Is there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have?
We have it.
Send it to Angela.
We have it at Microlink, and we can send it to you, Angela. And you can pass it on to your bosses and say, get in touch with NASA. We'd love to talk to you about making workplace adjustments.
So, yeah.
No, with Tracy.
And Simon said, love the idea of a catalogue of approved adjustments. Are there any examples of catalogues available to look at to show the kind of things that
yes.
It is important. It's important also, just to emphasize this, for small companies, anything is possible. It can be done quickly. When you're talking large companies where there is infrastructure and governance, it's very difficult to buy and put any products into the organization. Therefore, it's important to get those organizations to have that approved catalog to make sure that it will not fail the governance issue, like a piece of software that they've not tested before. So that conversation should start with their IT department, which are genuinely concerned about security issues. And then, yes, there is a catalog. We can certainly share it for large companies. It's a common adjustment, low cost common adjustment. And if they can get it approved, then anyone can go and request it. Especially if you get access to work support, the equipment you often recommended may not be approved, which means you've got the solution, but you can't have it.
Yeah, and just says she appreciates that some are more obvious adjustments than others, and certainly neurodiversity. So.
Oh, Jennifer, good question. That's a great one about, sharing the information. The really important thing about sharing information about adjustments is only about the adjustments, please. You cannot share the information about the disability itself, because that is actually breaking GDPR rules and you'll be in a lot of trouble. But always keep a note of the adjustments and carry them through the whole interview process, and then ideally straight onto the workplace adjustment process when they start with you. Does that help?
They kind of need both, don't they?
It's all
very well putting in a recruitment process. If you don't have a WPA process.
So, Bobby, you asked a question about what are the list of types of adjustments that are commonly required for different disabilities. It's really very much down to what is it a person struggles to do. If you have somebody who is dyslexic but works in a warehouse and does things in a warehouse, may not really need the kind of tools if you're a dyslexic working in an office. So it's not just based on condition, it's also based on the job function and how your condition impacts on the job you do. So there are absolutely countless number of adjustments and solutions. You just need to define what that problem is. It's often communication problems, reading, writing, seeing, hearing. For all those, there are gadgets and software that you could compensate for that deficit.
Yeah, one of the things I would like to just bring everybody's attention is we have a Microlink shop, and that shop has been designed for when you go onto it, it'll say if it's furniture, if it's hardware, if it's software, and also what it's good for, what that item can be good for. So for dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dyspraxia, and all these other conditions. So do have a look at that. That's on our website. I'll put that.
Rich Wheeler asking, can Microlink help to centralize hub so that employees don't need to ask their managers? Yes, that can be done, but the thing is, you really need the buy-in from your employers to make the adjustment for you. So it's not about asking. at the end of the day, if there is a solution, they need to implement it. Otherwise, you won't be able to use any of the recommendations. So yes, there is an easy process, and certainly access to work for small companies would be very useful. For a larger companies, they need to have a bit more joined up service for people who need help, where to go ask for that help from the experts, whether it's internal or external, and also what happens out of the recommendation. So just to know what you need is not the end of the problem. You need to actually get it implemented as well.
You mute again, Anna.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm turning it off because my husband's in the other room and he's on a very important call as well. And I'm wondering if you can pick up.
No.
That's working from home. Mark Anthony said, once you are employed and have a disability passport is a great way of not having to explain every time to every manager what your reasonable adjustment is.
It certainly is, and it's something that some companies are doing. They're also doing not only the hard adjustments and the software adjustments, but they're doing, just as what was mentioned earlier, they're doing the soft skills and support as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for questions. My life easier, yeah. I mean, everybody's just agreeing with each other at the moment and chatting.
Well, isn't it fabulous? We all agree.
Yeah,
wonderful.
We all agree.
We're all heading in the right direction then. That's marvellous.
So I think if there are employers here and they still have any doubts of doing this right, really the journey should begin. Look inwards and find out, and we've suggested how you could find out how many disabled employees they currently employ, and just guess what? You've actually managed to do well with them. You've looked after them, so there isn't really additional cost for a lot of disabilities. You might have to do things differently. Once you're confident you've managed disability without even realizing it, then you could start looking, how can I even do it better than that? How do I help those people to be more productive, more present, more engaged, and obviously more loyal? Because it is important. At the end of the day, if the employees find that you're not really taking that much interest in their well-being or their struggles, they'll leave you. As much as a lot of employees might think, well, good riddance, I don't need that person, he's not performing. Quite frankly, it's a lot of money being hemorrhaged by having to recruit somebody else training them. So yeah, that's one element of look at your workforce, and you will be able to find out how many people have disabilities and they've managed to do okay, but you can even improve that for them. Then you start also look at your recruitment. Do you really want the talent, or do you just want to go through the standard template of recruitment? And then you'll find that the business benefits outweighs any cost or any other issues that you would have concerned you.
And Rick, in answer to your question, absolutely, we do soft skills support, we do mental health support, we do all sorts of training and one-on-one support for individuals.
And yes, Rich, the support for training, raising awareness, yes, we can provide that. And again, we can say where there are free resources available, where you could get those, and then obviously try to pass on to your managers. There's a guide for line managers, guide for how to deal with, for example, dyslexia or mental health and all that. You can actually get those from organizations like BDF, Business Disability Forum, and share it. But certainly it's worth joining these organizations. We
are 6 minutes to the hour. But if there are no further questions,
I think we should let everyone out of school early.
Yes.
I do.
Well, then, if there are any other questions, we'll be sending the recording of last week and this week out. I've just put Tracy's direct email in the chat, so you can contact her with any questions. For those of you who need other, pre-approved catalogues and other resources that we mentioned in the chat, we will be monitoring that and sending it all out to you. But please join us. As I said, we're doing these monthly with for disability confident members in conjunction with the DWP. So the next one is on the 22nd of February, and that's all around digital accessibility. So making your websites, your PDFs, all your digital documents accessible, which is really, really important and not that difficult to do if you know how.
And part of the recruitment process as well, because just think how many offer letters you send out, information packs you send out in PDF format that would not be accessible to people. And actually, unfortunately, there's a really big groundswell of individuals suing companies at the moment. We want to move them away from that and make everything accessible.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
Okay.
Everyone have a great weekend.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Speak to you soon.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Nessa.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
I can't get out.
You're trapped. Bye.